It's official. Mark Carney was sworn in this morning as Canada's 24th Prime Minister. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Carney took the oath at Rideau Hall and unveiled his slimmed-down cabinet at a critical time for the country. Replacing Justin Trudeau, Carney's first move was to do away with the former Prime Minister's consumer carbon tax. CTV's Rachel Aiello has more on today's historic developments.
Mark Carney became Canada's 24th Prime Minister today. Presenting his new government to the Governor-General, Carney vowed to meet the moment.
I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trust reposed in me as Prime Minister.
Before the ceremony got underway, Justin Trudeau resigned privately. A muted end after a grand beginning to his near decade in power.
Congratulations, Prime Minister.
Now, Carney is looking to turn the page, removing several Trudeau-era ministers and walking away from gender parity. Carney's cabinet includes 23 people, 12 men and 11 women. Among the major moves, François-Philippe Champagne takes on the key finance portfolio. Stephen Guilbeault has lost the climate file, moving into a new role focused on Canadian culture and identity. And Kamal Khera, said to be a top party fundraiser, is now the health minister. Carney has also promoted 3 rookie MPs. Nova Scotian Cody Blois is in, as are Ontario MPs Ariel Kayabega and Ali Assassi. Maine Liberal leadership rival Chrystia Freeland is also back in the fold, accepting a lower position than she's held in years. But how long this cabinet will be in place is a big question. In his first press conference as Prime Minister, Carney said Canadians should expect to go to the polls early.
There will be other news in the coming days with respect to ensuring that we have as strong a mandate that is needed for the time.
Jagmeet Singh says before that happens, he's willing to buy Carney a bit more time.
We want to see a plan put in place rapidly to create jobs in Canada, and then we can go to election.
But Pierre Poilievre, whose campaign against Carney is already well underway, said he's ready for Canadians to have their say.
Mark Carney thinks Canadians are stupid. He thinks that a little bit of cosmetic surgery will allow the Liberals to disguise who they are and make people forget what they did for 10 years in order to elect them to a 4th Liberal term.
Carney confirmed today his first trip as Prime Minister will be to Europe. And his inner circle is also working on getting him on the phone with U.S. President Donald Trump in the next couple of days. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
With Prime Minister Carney and his cabinet assuming their roles today, many Canadians are adjusting to the change in leadership. Justin Hardy spoke with people at Intercity Shopping Centre today to find out how they feel about the new Prime Minister and when they think the federal election should be held.
With Canada celebrating the newly sworn-in Prime Minister, many throughout the country are discussing what they want to see happen. Some Thunder Bay residents we spoke to say they're looking forward to seeing how Carney performs in his new role.
From what I've seen so far, I am very hopeful. He seems like he's really qualified. I know that I've done a lot of research into him. He seems like he has a lot of experience, and he is who we need right now to take on the threats from Trump and the United States right now.
I think their experience has shown what they can do in their time as a new president. So I think he is a great candidate, and it was a great choice for Mark Carney to come in power instead of once Trudeau was out. And yeah, I think he would make a great Prime Minister.
Well, I'm just trying to see what he's going to do for our country and what he's got planned. So far, I like what I hear from him about standing up to Trump, and hopefully he'll do a good job.
We also ran into Adelina Pecchia, a Conservative candidate in the last federal election. She says she's not in favor of Carney on principle.
I don't think much of anybody who's been a Liberal in the Trudeau and associated with Trudeau. So no, I'm not expecting anything different that he's bringing to the table.
Surprisingly, Pecchia says she doesn't think an election is what would be best for Canadians right now.
I think what we need is to get government back into work. The MPs were elected for a reason. They should be back at work. So I don't think that I know I would like to see more time just to get things evened out with what's going on with the USA.
Other local residents seem to be a bit mixed on whether we should be having an election, but most agree that they expect one to be called very soon.
I would be happy to see it at any point. I do think that there will probably be one called in the next couple weeks. I think that it's time for Canada to kind of have a reset, and I do have faith that whoever will be our next leader, I really hope that they do a good job and they lead us through these really unpredictable times.
I would like him to settle down for once if possible, but I don't see that happening. So maybe it's happening soon. I don't know when, but I would hope that at least he gets to do his job or settle in once and see how the things are going around. So yeah, let's see how it goes at least.
I'm not quite sure about that. They might have a snap election, which would be fine with me because I already know who I'm going to vote for. So, the sooner the better to get the country back on, its feet.
Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Well, Patty Hajdu has managed to retain her Indigenous Affairs seat in Mark Carney's trimmed-down cabinet. Hajdu served in Justin Trudeau's cabinet since 2015, including for 2 years as health minister during the height of the pandemic. She's been the Minister of Indigenous Services and the minister responsible for FedNor since October of 2021. Carney has decided to keep Hajdu in one of those roles, and she was officially sworn in at Rideau Hall this morning.
I, Patricia Hajdu, do solemnly and sincerely promise and declare that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trusts reposed in me as Minister of Indigenous Services.
Hajdu's other portfolio, FedNor, has been merged with several other regional economic development agencies and will now be overseen by Anita Anand, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. It was 5 years ago this week that COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization. The deadly virus and the resulting lockdowns, of course, had a major impact on everyone around the world. Jessica Clement spoke with Dr. Janet DeMille today, the district's medical officer of health, about those early days of the pandemic and the lessons that were learned.
We saw that all of that happening. We knew that it was going to get here really eventually. And so there was a lot of, concerns, getting prepared, but there was also a lot of uncertainty at that time.
By the time COVID-19 was officially declared a global pandemic on March 11th, 2020, Dr. Janet DeMille and her staff at the District Health Unit were already anticipating it to affect the region.
I remember actually it was Bill Morrow, who was mayor at that time, dropped by here in the early days of what was happening and just connecting with him, right? Connecting with the city, making sure we were, establishing or building on those relationships so that we could have that effective communication. It was also about healthcare providers, so talking to the hospital.
In the 5 years since the declaration, the health unit and other agencies administered hundreds of thousands of COVID tests and almost 500,000 vaccines. The Thunder Bay District saw thousands of positive cases and 172 deaths with COVID-19 as the underlying cause. DeMille says there were a lot of lessons learned, not just locally but globally, that can help us prepare for possible future pandemics. That includes the importance of personal protective equipment, mass immunization clinics, and getting a vaccine out quickly. However, she notes that there were still a few things that needed to be taken more seriously, like clean indoor air.
Proper ventilation and filters and things like that, and I feel like that would help us in the next, another pandemic. Not sure that's a lesson that's been really implemented at this time. I think one of the areas that are probably the biggest concern is with respect to another pandemic, for example, is healthcare capacity and public health capacity.
And while the day-to-day effects of the pandemic are behind us, DeMille notes it's important to remember that the virus isn't gone.
There's a certain unpredictability of it, but the variants that we see, for the most part, are causing milder illness. However, there are still people hospitalized pretty much all the time due to COVID.
Jessica Clement, TBT News.
Premier Doug Ford and other Canadian officials say they're optimistic the temperature of the trade war with our southern neighbors will cool down after meeting with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in Washington yesterday. But has anything really changed, and what comes next? Here's CTV's Siobhan Morris.
It's a discussion the Premier had high hopes for After 90 minutes behind closed doors with American officials, Doug Ford was feeling upbeat.
We're having very productive conversations. They turned out very, very well.
This was a meeting with federal cabinet ministers and U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. It came together after Ford put a 25% surcharge on electricity to 3 U.S. states.
We feel like the temperature's come down.
With the energy threat on the back burner, Ford says the meeting emphasized the closeness of the Canada-U.S. trading partnership.
And how we can continue working together to support each other.
That's not far off a Commerce Department readout of the meeting, saying the Americans highlighted the Trump administration's commitment to pursuing fair trade and Canada's potential role in those efforts. Both countries, they say, recognize the strength and history of their relationship. For the Premier, that last bit is key.
My years in business and years in government, I believe in building relationships. And I think we've come a long way in building this relationship.
While the Canadian delegation didn't walk away with any new relief on tariffs.
There's no alternative than standing up for Canadians, standing up for our workers, and standing up for our industry.
Federal ministers feel they now have a better grip on what's to come.
It was an opportunity for us to understand in a very concrete way the American process over the next few weeks.
With a new round of what U.S. President Donald Trump calls reciprocal tariffs hanging in the balance April 2nd.
Every time that you have engagement, dialogue, but also that you can voice your differences, I think it brings the discussion forward.
The next round of that discussion has been set for Washington next week. But this time, the talks will be between bureaucrats. No premier, cabinet ministers, ambassadors, or commerce secretary at the table. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
5 people have been arrested by Thunder Bay police following a major drug bust yesterday. Search warrants were executed at a Cameron Street residence and another on Rona Street following an investigation that began last fall. Members of the intelligence unit confiscated a large quantity of suspected cocaine, along with fentanyl, meth, and an unloaded shotgun. The estimated street value of the drugs is over $225,000. 3 of the suspects, a 63-year-old man from Thunder Bay and 2 men from the GTA, aged 32 and 21, were charged with drug trafficking offenses. The local suspect and 2 other women from Thunder Bay, aged 26 and 30, were charged with unauthorized possession and careless storage of a firearm. The 5 accused remain in custody pending future court dates. Well, get ready to break out your green and purple as St. Urho's Day is being celebrated tomorrow. The Finlandia Cooperative of Thunder Bay is once again hosting the annual event, and it's shaping up to be a great time. Festivities kick off at noon with the return of the St. Urho's Day Sidewalk Parade. Marchers will chant their way from Bay Credit Union to the Prince Arthur Hotel. Once there, the party continues with a variety show featuring dance groups and the Finn Orchestra. There will also be a small market with local artisans and plenty of Finnish treats like pea soup, gnocchi sausages, and even seasoned crickets to fit the grasshopper theme. Event volunteer Helena Stevens says what she's most excited for this year is a pair of contests being organized for the festivities.
We have a unique sign contest, so if you got your creativity flowing and you want to come up with your own special sign, there is a prize for the best sign and also the best costume. So purple and green, whatever you kind of feel like wearing that day. You actually could also win a prize for being a unique representation of St. Urho or grapes or a grasshopper. Really, the sky's the limit.
Residents can join in the fun, starting with the parade at noon or at the Prince Arthur Hotel from 12:30 to 4 o'clock. $5 gets you in with a commemorative button. March break is always one of the busiest times at the local ski hills as plenty of kids hit the slopes before they have to go back to school on Monday. Brendan Miller went out to Loch Lomond just before today's thunderstorm to ask young skiers and snowboarders how it's been.
Plenty of kids and families were out at Loch Lomond enjoying one of the last few days of their March break. It's been a terrific season this year, with there being enough snow to keep all the runs open and everyone happy, especially since last March break there wasn't much snow to shred on. Ski school director Lindsay Gary says it's a great time to be on the slopes.
We've been having a pretty good March break. Lots of people out, lots of nice sunshine, so it's been super fun, super good conditions, so we've been really lucky.
Even better, the kids have been having a good time also.
It's going good. The weather's kind of iffy right now, but it's really fun. On the train park, guess what? I hit a tube in a rail for my first time.
Awesome. And so are you going to do it again?
Yeah, I did it 2 times already.
I've been here every day. It's been very fun. It's been awesome, honestly. I've been hitting the park a lot, trying new things. Just got the 360 down on one of the big jumps. It's been going pretty well.
Still having a blast. It's a good time as always.
Gary also mentioned that their Learn to Ski programs have been booming over the break.
Our snow school has been doing amazing. We had about 80 kids in our ski school March break camp, which is like groundbreaking for our ski school. We've had a lot of great programs like our 1 in 1000s and stuff like that. Overall, yeah, our ski school has been like very busy this year. We've had a lot of people come out. And then we've just had some other awesome events, like we had a slopestyle competition a few weeks ago, which went super well.
Despite the less than ideal conditions, kids of all ages are enjoying their final days of March break before they head back to school on Monday. Brendan Miller, TBT News.
Well, Fiona, we thought that yesterday when we caught up with some of the kids on the slopes at Mount Baldy that would be their last opportunity. But as we see, a lot of people did manage to just sneak it in today at Loch Lomond before that rain came. I would imagine, though, that the snow might have taken a bit of a beating later this afternoon.
Yes, it certainly did. If they went in the morning, they probably squeaked it in because there's a bit active. Things got kind of scary, dark skies this afternoon. If we take a look at the systems that went through earlier today to the west, a fair amount of rain, but this wasn't the one we were watching. It was this band that swept through. So it came through quickly, dumped some rain, had some thunder and lightning out there. And then the rest of the afternoon, the sun started coming out. So it was a very odd day, but this is just the beginning. This is actually part of a much larger storm that I'll be showing you more later on in the newscast. But for the city of Thunder Bay, we started out with a low of 1 Celsius. We hit a high of 5 under mainly cloudy skies for most of the day. And of course, that thunderstorm between about 12 and 1 p.m. Winds started out fairly moderate most of the morning from the east-northeast, about 18 to 20 kilometers per hour. But this afternoon, gusts have been kicking up steadily more and more, up to 42 kilometers an hour by around 4 o'clock. Now, throughout the region, temperatures stayed above the freezing mark directly west where Fort Frances did have rain earlier today. At this hour, though, nothing but sunshine. They're sitting at 13. And actually, it's a possibility that they might have hit a new record. I've been searching today to see what has been past temperatures for this day in the fort, and I can't confirm it, but it is looking like they might have hit a record today. Kenora at Sioux Lookout currently at 12, as is Dryden. We've got another 13 in Atikokan. As we head further north, though, into Red Lake, they started with a low of -5, topped out with a high of +5, so temperatures swung a good 10 degrees, mainly cloudy for most of the day. In Greenstone, they literally had everything. They started out with periods of snow, they had freezing rain, they had regular rain, they had clouds, and then they had bright sunshine for about an hour as well. So I'm sure people north of Lake Superior are a little confused today. Currently at 6 Celsius, near their high for the day, and Sault Ste. Marie, mainly cloudy, although they too had a brief thunderstorm as that second system that we felt swept through the northeastern shores of Lake Superior. They're currently at 4 Celsius. They topped out with a high of 6. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, it's not going to get much colder. In fact, tonight we're going to stick around the 5 Celsius mark. There's minimal chance of showers continuing this evening, but there is a chance of a pop-up thunderstorm overnight with that that low of 5. Winds will be gusting 20 to 30 kilometers per hour from the east. And the LRCA has issued a flood watch for the city, and that's because with the warmer temperatures, they've got the melting snow, but now you've got the addition of rainfall heading through today and into the weekend. That could cause some significant runoff. The frozen ground just can't absorb the rain that has been falling, which means watercourses and low-lying areas could see a rise in levels. They could see some ponding, and especially if you've got kids around the banks of some of the waterways, keep an eye on them. It's slippery. It could still get icy at times through the weekend, and there could be a lot of very cold, fast-moving water. So it's something to keep in mind. I've been talking this week about the issues with basements and that sort of thing, but there is real concern for folks who are out along the waterways, so keep an eye on your kids. We don't want any tragedies to befall us this weekend, but there is more rain on the way, and that's why that flood watch is in effect.
Yeah, well said, Fiona. Good advice there. Of course, we love the rising temperatures, but we do have to remember that it does come with some risks.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, well, obviously the big story today is the fact that Canada has a new prime minister. We've already spoken plenty about that, but there was another major event happening today, and that is the G7 foreign ministers meeting wrapped up in Quebec. We'll have the latest on that as your Friday News Hour continues right after the break.